Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-14, the intent to opt out of House Bill 172 and establishing the ban on discharging, igniting, or exploding fireworks in the township.
Madam Chair, I will second.
Discussion?
I can start off.
Sure. Go ahead.
We had some discussion at the last meeting. I can tell you that in my 30 years in the law enforcement profession, that the majority of calls related to the discharge of fireworks wasn't wanting to discharge them. It was the result of the discharge during late hours. Obviously, most of the fireworks are discharged in the evening or early morning hours because it's nighttime. So those resulted in noise disturbances. So most law enforcement agencies are discretionary on the 4th of July, and you give a warning, and if you come back, you shut it down, obviously in celebration of Independence Day. But as far as House Bill 172 goes, you're talking about increasing the ability to discharge fireworks over 20-some days of the year. In my opinion, I think it will tax our safety services, both law enforcement and fire. When we used to send officers to the calls of noise disturbances because people wanted to get to sleep, or the noise kept continuing and residents wanted to shut down, you just can't send one officer. You usually send two just out of safety, because a lot of these situations involve parties and things of that nature where these fireworks were being blown off. So I think it's taxing to our services, law enforcement and fire already. Our law enforcement staffing across not only the Lake County but adjacent counties in the country, staffing levels are reduced, and our safety forces are trying to fill vacant positions. There's not a lot of new blood coming in the profession, so I think it's going to tax our first responders, who are already taxed day to day. Secondly, I believe it will impact safety. Obviously, if you create more days where these types of situations are allowed and they're not discharged by licensed professionals or people that are certified to discharge fireworks, I think it creates a propensity for hazardous discharge of those fireworks that can result in injury and compromise safety. So I think my responsibility as a trustee is to make sure that we do what's best for the township. And my feeling is that I think we opt out because I just think it's compromising. I know there's maybe the other side of the coin is, is it government overreach? People should be able to discharge the fireworks. I don't think it's government overreach. I think, in my opinion, that we have an obligation to protect the interests of the township. I think they will create a large number of noise disturbances and tax our safety services, again, fire and police, and it will also increase potential for injury and compromise safety, just based on the situation that there's going to be more situations where unexperienced people will be discharging fireworks.
Thank you.
This came up at the Township Association meeting last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? I guess keep screwing that up. So we had a lengthy conversation about it, and I know our neighboring township to the east, Leroy, has already taken action, and they've pretty much permitted it with some level of restriction. And I know that Painesville Township doesn't intend to do anything. And I know that the sheriff's department was seeking some uniformity in that, not having to. And I'm sure, Carl, you can appreciate the idea of like, well, Painesville's doing this, Concord's doing that. Like, I can certainly imagine that. I know that we've had conversations with the community about a number of issues, and something that comes back often is that people say, well, I live in a township and I don't want, and the idea, or at least the theory in my mind, townships is it's limited rule. So I think from that standpoint, you look at, do we, not so much government overreach, but is it just one of those things where people come to a township and they expect to have those freedoms? That's maybe why they're here. They don't have overreaching ordinances and things like they'll get in a city. Concord's an interesting community in the sense that I think you have a lot of people that, you're a trustee for the city. No, we live in a township. So on one hand, half the time you speak to a resident, you're correcting them that we're not a city, and the other half, there's people out here that are very ardent about the fact that they live in a township, and it's definitely, I think we kind of ran across this with the trash hauler contract. I don't want government making that choice for me. And I certainly think that there's also the argument that you can make it illegal, and we constantly have the sheriff responding. 4th of July, Independence Day is a big deal with respect to noise complaints and parties, like you said. I am concerned if we go the opt-out route, or have at least had this thought that if we go the opt-out route, where people are going to think the state law and not realize local is going to supersede that, and that, but the state passed it, it's legal to do it on X date and all these other dates. Are you going to make response even more of a challenge as opposed to, hey, it's legal, we don't have to respond? Not an easy decision. I definitely see both sides of the coin, and of course you bring up great points, safety. I don't doubt that if you or so, depending on how broadly this is accepted in the state, you're going to have more injuries and accidents and fire. It's just going to happen. It's not a safe thing, and you hear about these accidents all the time. So I don't know. I do find myself struggling on both sides of the issue.
Thank you. So I agree. I think that, like you said, limited rule is I think important in a township, and I sort of felt the same way about the trash thing. That
Right.
wasn't my decision to make for people. I think it would be nice for people to be able to enjoy fireworks on a private basis in their private lot if that's what they want to do. And I agree with the uniformity of enforcing this with our neighbors on both sides of us. But I also feel that, as a township official, that safety should be our primary concern. And I really worry with, we have houses that are close together, and I worry about maybe discharges that aren't completely safe and how that could cause injury and put our first responders in situations that they probably don't need to be in. I spoke with people on our fire department who highly recommend that we opt out, and I feel that I need to listen to these experts and weigh in on, or also, understand from their viewpoint how that would impact this decision. We get calls on 4th of July all the time for noise. We get calls for noise on other issues. And the other thing is, if we did accept this, we could restrict it. We could restrict it for maybe just the 4th of July or just Memorial Day. But then how do you pick? You're not going to make
Right.
everyone happy by just picking maybe one
Right.
holiday. And to me, that's going to be a little more confusing if you only allow one. Well, that kind of doesn't make sense either. So I'm almost thinking that it just seems the more responsible thing to opt out based on some of those decisions. And we still can enjoy fireworks. I think enjoying fireworks by individuals who are trained and it's done on a commercial basis, we can still do that. It's not like we're taking anything away.
I agree. I mean, we're not changing the way it's always been in the township, and I do know we get inundated with noise complaints. I do think one of the issues we're going to have is, again, back to people thinking that, it's legal, and not realizing that we've been made an act, and if this legislation passes, I might encourage our administration that we need to, in the next week or two, really step up the communication on how this vote goes. Right. That lets people know what Concord Township decided. And it's one of those things where I think, when I consider the limited government and the philosophy, I certainly think safety of a community is something that compels government to act, as opposed to, you might think about the trash decisions like, okay, that's a little bit more of an economic one. We talked about our roads, convenience, and so forth, and that's not impacting anything. Both Amy, you, and Carl have made compelling case with respect to safety, and I think that's not a small issue here from a standpoint of governance and what our responsibility is to the community.
Any other comments?
Nope.
So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.